All right, can you guys see me? I can't tell if it's streaming. Just a second, it's making me type something in. Ah, just a second. Don't you hate it when you can't remember your passwords? Okay. Let me pull up the chat window, make sure I can see if you guys are seeing it. Can you see me now? No. I can see me. It says I'm live. All right, let's try here. There is a bit of delay. No. So you'll just have to bear with it. I can see me. Okay, I gotta close that window because that's gonna drive me nuts. It's echoing whatever I say. All right. So, it says I'm live. Whoops, nope, it's still doing it. Let me close that off. Mute it. Bear with me, please. Okay. Hello, fellow YouTubers. Bear Prepper here. Sorry for the delay. There is a slight delay between what you're seeing and what I'm saying. So, bear with me as we go through. I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. And I hope this turns out well and we continue to do it. There is something I'd like to talk about first, and I don't normally get into politics on my channel, but I do want to mention this. There is a nationwide Stand By Me for March 5th in states across the United States. We are having one here in San Antonio on March 5th. I think it's 10 or 11 a.m. We haven't found the location yet. But the reason I'm participating in this is because I am not a domestic terrorist. And I don't like being called a domestic terrorist because I don't believe what the government tells me. So This is a Patriots Nationwide. Stand by me, and we're going to stand in solidarity with the Fincham family to help keep Americans aware of the tyranny committed by the United States government against its own citizens, which ultimately led to the murder of Lavoy Finicum on January 26th at the hands of the government agents. So I hope you join me if you're here in San Antonio. If not, go to Facebook and look for Nationwide Stand By Me and find out where they're having one in your location. So now let's get started with canning our orange jelly. I decided to go with orange jelly because it's something that we can all get. And the ingredients are rather simple. And if you've never canned before, it is the best way to start, to have something easy, get you comfortable with the process. This will be a beginner's class. So the next class I've already got something picked out for it. It'll be a little more advanced and we'll just progress our way up. So these are the tools you're going to need and the ingredients you're going to need. So I made some the other day and I used stevia because I wanted to show you what it would look like. Now stevia, it really thickens really well with the low sugar pectin. For those of you that have not low sugar pectin, then you can use regular pectin and you just want to use 4 cups of sugar instead of 3 cups. The reason I chose the low sugar pectin is because we have a wide audience here. And so this recipe will allow you to make it for diabetics. You can make it with stevia, which is great for diabetics. And also, if you didn't know, stevia, if you take a teaspoon of this a day and put it in your mouth and dissolve it, and then rinse it or swallow it, it will actually help you with your body. It cleans out toxins, and it has a very good healing compound in it for your gums and everything else. Our dentist is the one that got us started on stevia. So, have I lost anybody yet? Okay. Whoops. You see, you just lost me. Let me bring that page back up. So in the link below, which I can't get to now, are the ingredients. So hopefully I'll remember these by heart. I was trying to see how far behind you guys were. So hopefully everybody has gotten their ingredients ready. And I hope you all have your water pot on that you're going to water bath your jars in, because that's going to take the longest amount of time to get ready. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the things I recommend is that you use the widest pot possible. Can you see me? I don't want to keep saying that. And I can't type now. There we go. All right, so the first thing you want to do is I always put my sugar in first. 3 cups of sugar, 4 cups if you're using the not low sugar pectin. You want to then put in 4 cups of whatever orange juice you want. I choose no pectin so that it is a clearer jelly and you don't get those little bits and pieces in your mouth. You want to put 4 cups of juice. Now you want to put your temperature up pretty high, about medium high. because this is going to go rather rapidly. You want to then add your 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons, I'm going off of memory now, guys, of your pectin. Same amount if you're using the no sugar or low sugar, non-sugar, whatever kind you're using, you're going to use the same amount. I buy it in bulk because it seems to work better that way. I'm not getting any responses, so I'm wondering if I've lost everyone. Let me go back to the video page. Okay, so let's try that again. This is new to me, guys, so I really apologize if we're losing contact here. I now see the chat, so that's good, whereas I lost the chat before. All right, so at this point, we have our sugar, our orange juice, and our pectin in the bowl. And the one thing I forgot was a spoon. And you just want to stir it up. And you really want to get that pectin dissolved really well before it starts to boil, because if you wait, you're going to have issues. While that's happening, I wanted to show you something. If you're doing something like strawberries and you want a jelly, or grapes and you want a jelly, then you want to get yourself a jelly bag. They're very inexpensive, and they look like this when they're set up. See that? Not enough room here. You just set it on the rim of any bowl, and you pour your goodies in there. And bring it up a little bit. This just sits over the rim, and you pour it in and you let it strain. And that's how you get your juice for jellies. So if you want to do grape jelly or some other jelly that has pulp in it, then that's what you want to use if you want it to be clear. I'll move this out of the way. So right now we're just waiting for it to dissolve. You have to mess with it a little bit, especially if you waited as long as I did to get it in and stirred. But it should stir up pretty well. Trying to get all these away from the heat. So does anyone have any questions? I see an oops, uh-oh. Oh, my oops, I bet. That's what you're seeing now. All right, so canning is really simple. Like I said, one of the keys to success is using the widest pot that you can get. But the problem is if you use a narrow pot, what happens is the heat doesn't hit the pot correctly. And it doesn't get all the ingredients boiling rapidly enough. And that's when you usually have your setup issues, where the jelly just won't set. One of the things we're not going to do today, but you can do, is you take a plate and you put a couple ice cubes on it. This is the fast way. Put a few ice cubes on it. When you think your jelly is at the gelling point, I guess we could do it here. You're going to take a tablespoon of jelly and you're going to pour it right over that ice. And it should show you rather rapidly if it's going to set up. What will happen is some of it will be running because it hit the ice, but you'll have like clumps. of jelly on there, and that'll tell you that it's going to set up really nice. Different sugars react differently, so be prepared to maybe have a too thick a jelly or a too thin a jelly if you're doing something new. If you're using something that you've done before, then you already know that it'll work right. Yeah, stevia is much better than Splenda. Stevia is very healthy for you, and you can grow it in your garden like I do. Now, it's green, so it will change the color of things, but it's 300 times the strength of sugar. And so if you're using stevia in the raw form from the plant, very important to use the low sugar Certo. So make sure if you're prepping that you keep that on hand, because the regular sugar stuff, you would have to put way too much stevia in there for it to set up. And this boiling is going to take a little while, so if anyone has any questions, I would be really happy to answer them. Now what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring this to a boil. And when I say boil, it's going to be a hard boil. So you're not going to be able to stir it down. Now that my clumping is gone, I want to take a ½ teaspoon of butter. And the only reason we put the butter in there is so that it doesn't foam as much. So it's really nice to have. Let me move you over here a little closer so you can see the pot. There we go. And we're just stirring to get all the clumps out. I prefer to use the liquid stevia. The liquid Certo, because you don't have to deal with the clumping. But when you use liquid Certo, it is a different process. You bring it to boil, and then you put it in. But that's pretty much the only difference. It does put a slight, very, very slight lemon taste because it is the liquid. But you can't, if you're using strawberries or something like that, it won't matter. Or orange, because orange already has a bite to it because it's very high acidity. Okay. Let's see if we can get this temp up. I'm turning mine up to just below high. All right, so at this point in the process, check your water that you have for your water bath. Now, what I like to do when I use just any old pot, you don't need to have a special pot. I take 2 rings and I put them in the bottom of the pot and I set the jar on top. If you're doing a full pot where you're doing multiple recipes, then you can line the entire bottom of the pot with these things and your jar's all set. But when you're only doing a couple, you want to do them 2 by 2. You can also put a towel in there, but it has to be a very thin towel. So I have my rings already in my pot. And then what I want to do, as this comes up to boil, I want to take some of that water out of here and put it in a bowl for my lids. Now I know that Ball has said you don't need to sterilize your lids and jars. When we touch our jars, we touch them on the inside, we touch them on the outside. We grab a hold of the lids to get them off the jars. There's bacteria on those. So I still put my lids in hot water. That's my daughter. And I let them sit. Your choice. I have been doing this for many years and have had great luck. I used to can with wax, so if you don't have any money and you want to seal it with wax, Sorry, I was reading the comments. But if you want to seal it with wax, I know government doesn't want us to do it, but you can. You just take and melt your wax in a double pot. So you want to do a double boiler type, and you pour a 1/4 inch of wax over the top. I like to do it in 2 layers. I pour a little bit till it completely covers, and then I wait an hour or 2, and then I pour another layer of wax on it. Now with jelly, I was brought up where you took the wax off. If there was mold on it, you scoop that mold right off and you eat it. Because if you're in a hot climate, and I happen to be in California, excuse me, you may get that wax to melt just a little hair. And so the jelly kind of seeps out and you get a little mold on it. I'm not afraid of any little mold, but the FDA is, so I warn you now, you want to follow FDA, USDA, go for it. These are just how I do it. There she goes again. Just letting the dog go potty. That's her job tonight. All right, so I'm looking in the chat room to see if I'm missing any questions. Pectin from crab apples. No, I have not made it from crab apples, but I understand that it works really well. I did try apple peels and apple seeds, you know, the cores, and I didn't have very much luck, but I think it was the brand of apple that I chose to use. So did everyone get the ingredients in the pot? 3 tablespoons of pectin, 3 cups of sugar, 4 cups of orange juice, and 1/2 teaspoon of butter. I am using new lids. I do not use the lids that were on the jar. And let me explain to you why. I pulled those lids off and set them aside for months. And some of them won't have a groove, but most of them do. I had a lot of failures when I used the lids off the jars. I actually take those and use them to vacuum seal things in mason jars because I do a lot of dehydrating. So they're not going to waste. They are just not going on my product that's going out into the shed. And anyone can tell you, if you do spend all this time doing a batch of something and you lose it because the lid popped, it's very frustrating. A gentleman was just telling me the other day, he did his, and I think he did 8 jars or 9 jars, and only one of them stayed sealed 2 weeks later. So it's up to you. They say they're fine. Their gaskets are the same as they used to be. They actually are a little thicker in 2015 from my measurements. So, you know, they're good, but that groove in there, it's already set, and I'm never going to put that lid back on the same spot it was. So I just don't take that risk. All right, so what do you think of having 2 cameras? I know it looks dangerous. I got my laptop on the stove and my tripod over here with the external. And as you can see in the corner there, I don't know if you guys see that or not. Hopefully not. But so I am still waiting for mine to boil, and I bet yours is too. You want to get your jars ready. You put them in your hot water, and you get them ready. I got to rinse out my little orange juice. So if you've got your orange juice cup, rinse it out. And we're going to take some water out of this pot. And we're going to put it in this blue bowl. And that is where I'm going to put my lids. One of the things I like to do with my lids is I like to turn them in opposite directions so that when I go to get them out of the water, I don't have to mess with them. Now, I don't have my lid lifter, so this should be interesting. You can use a fork. I was trying to do things with as minimal tools as possible. The only true tool that you needed to have was a jar lifter. And I highly recommend a jar lifter because that water is hot and you will burn your fingers. I've tried tongs and everything else, and jar lifter is pretty much a necessity. Yes, I do use Tattler lids. I absolutely love them. All right, so once it starts to boil, you only want to boil it for 1 minute. But remember, you don't want to be able to stir it down. And as you can see, mine doesn't stir down, so I've started my timer. I'm going to get my jars ready. My lids are ready, and my pot is ready. Good old steam. I think this is going quite well. What do you guys think? Oh, that's nice. 2,000 acres in East Texas. I wish I could afford that much. That is awesome. A great retreat area. As you all know, I am moving March 4th. Okay, so the timer has gone off. And now we're going to jar. You turn off your heat. And once again, I'm using the same tools. I have a measuring glass here. I don't need those anymore. And we're going to turn you towards the jars. And you just want to take it and pour it in. And I wanted to show you that ice, didn't I? Let me show you the ice real quick. All right, so I have 3 ice cubes. And I've got my dirty tablespoon. And I'm going to pour it right over. And then you look. And you see how it's clumped. You can see, and maybe that one went too quick. Yeah, you can you, I don't know if you guys can really tell, but you can see clumps in there. Or you can just freeze a spoon and put it in there. And that's a way to test it. Usually these recipes come out perfect. If they don't, you just can open the jars and reseal them or call them syrup. That works too. And I better not do that because someone else may want to do that. See, here's a perfect example of how it's done. Do you see how on that jar? Can you see that? It's already lumped up on the lid there. And I'm filling these to 1/4 inch. And it's going to be about probably 3½ jars is what I measured. It sets up pretty quick once it comes off the heat. Oh, interesting. I got more with the regular sugar, quite a bit more. All right, let me get a little half jar here. And this one we won't seal. We'll just put a little lid on it. Now remember, be very careful because this stuff is very hot. If you want to use gloves, you're more than welcome to use gloves. I don't use gloves, and my family's okay with that. The last item you're going to need is a damp paper towel. So I wet it and then I squeeze it out. And you're just going to wipe the top. Now you're just getting this very flat surface on top. You're not getting the sides. We don't care about any of that. Just the flat surface. And you want to constantly turn it, because when the little bits get on it, you don't want to be smearing them back on. I'm surprised I got 5 jars, guys. So there's a big difference for you. I got 3.5 jars with the stevia and 5 jars with the sugar. So if you're preparing for a bulk group, go with the sugar. Just make a couple for the diabetics. And now we want to take our lids and just set them on top. And like I said, the reason I put them in the water is to prevent bacteria. I'm just going to put a regular lid on that thing. That one will go in the fridge. Too hot. It's very hot. If you need a pot holder to hold the jar, please do that. So when you're tightening these lids, everybody's strength is a little different. So you want to go finger tight and then a twist. Barely any more on it. Finger tight and then a little twist. If you're very strong, please just do it finger tight. They also make a tool that will teach you how to do it. What I like to do and what I like to teach people is, if you buy the tool, I want you to do it by hand first. And then I want you to put the tool on it and see if you've done it right. And that way you'll know if you've got the knack for how to do it. Because your tool can break. And in a bad situation, you really want to have the ability to do it without tools. So now we're going to put these in our Waterbath canner. And my Waterbath canner is a pot. You're more than welcome to purchase a Waterbath canner, but I'll give you a word of warning. These little jars do not sit in it very well. So if you're doing lots of little jelly jars, it's much more difficult. It's another huge pot that you need to store, and it's extremely cumbersome. So that is something to think about. And of course, I only prepared for 3 jars, so we are going to put more rings in here. And the reason we put the rings in there is because you don't want your jelly sitting on the bottom of the pot. Make sure you have 1 inch of water over the tops of your jars. And then the last thing you want to do is put a little drop, maybe a tablespoon of vinegar. The reason we do that is if you don't put the vinegar in the pot and you have really hard water, your jars are going to be white and you're going to have to scrub them. So with your water simmering, just small boiling, not huge, you want to set your timer for 4 minutes. Excuse me, 10 minutes. I was on number 4 when I said that. All of you that are joining, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And I'm going to go ahead and move this one over here to make it a little easier. Excuse me, Renegade. Alrighty. It just keeps my laptop safe. So do we have any questions that I can answer while we're waiting for our canning process to finish? Or anything that I might have missed answering for you? Yeah, I gave mine to my friends, my Waterbath canners, and they make plant pots out of them because it is just, it's, you know, you've got so many of these big pots around, and you only need one big enough to hold however many jars you're going to do, and it needs to cover it by at least 1 inch. Don't go more than 2, because when you go to use your jar lifter, you're more likely going to stick your fingers in the water. So make it no more than 2 inches over the top. So the next class I thought I'd teach was, I was trying to think of something that we would have on hand. So I thought, you know, my daughter really loves that Smucker's strawberry, what is it called? I wrote it down. It's called Strawberry Fruit Spread by Smucker's. And strawberries, they're in the freezer section, so it's not like it's going to be an issue for us to get them. And we will use either one of the pectins. I'll give directions for either one. And I'll go ahead and update this description to include the 4 cups if you use the regular pectin. If you use the regular pectin, you can't use the stevia, and you can't use the other substitutes like honey. And honey you can. You just have to use a little more of it. You have to use enough for 4 cups. But the stevia and the Splenda and those kind of things, you can't use that for it. So, and like I said, if things go bad, you really want to have some of the low pectin. You can order it on Amazon. You can also order it bulk. And I usually buy things in bulk. I had everything packed. I've got about 140 boxes packed. And so I had to go out and buy this because, of course, all of mine was packed. But I usually buy it in bulk, and I usually buy 2 pounds. And then I just Mylar it up and fill up my jar. I'll keep one of these jars around so I know which one it is and fill it up. So I don't have that whole bag or jar of the 2 pounds in my cupboard. Just in case something happens, I don't want it all in one place. It's doing good. So yes, you want to do it for 10 minutes. I think. Isn't that what the instructions say? Oh my goodness. I don't have the instructions anymore. Here, I don't want you to see me looking it up. Bear's looking it up. Yeah, 10 minutes. Don't forget to adjust for your altitude. You've got to do it a little different at different altitudes for a different amount of time because the boiling point is different at higher altitudes. Also, on my Google Drive, if you look at Bear Prepper on Google Drive, I have all kinds of documents there. I have my food template that you're more than welcome to have. I have dehydrating and rehydrating times. I have all that kind of good stuff up there. I've got the old, I think the old canning book, how to pressure can without a pressure canner. So how to can meats without a pressure canner. I know, FDA, USDA says don't do it. I did it for 20 years. As long as you're careful and you follow the directions and you cook it long enough, don't let it hold you back. Especially the way times are right now. Get some food on your shelves. Get some meat, because meat is going to be the hardest thing for you to get. That's 5 minutes. The altitude chart, I think, is up there also. So just look up Bear Prepper on Google Drives, and you should be able to find what you need there. I just read what BC Truck put in there. Let's see. Now, you probably should have some extra jars on hand, because if, say you were to get a deer and things were tough, how would you store that deer? The one thing I want to talk about, though, is, I thought, yeah, no problem, power goes out, I'm going to take everything out of my freezer, I'm going to cook it and can it. Not possible. You're still going to lose so much. So one of the things I'm going to do here in the future is I'm going to reduce what goes in the freezer. And I'm working with my freeze dryer now, and so I'm doing things that I couldn't normally pressure can. You don't want to pressure can ham. Kielbasa, if you cook kielbasa like I cook it when I use it, I caramelize it, then yes, you can do kielbasa. But if you don't like it caramelized, don't do kielbasa. Don't do hot dogs. Really, honest to goodness, don't do them. That is not how they turn out, like the videos you've seen. So don't do them. They talk about on the FDA and USDA not doing corned items. I do them all the time. I haven't had an issue. I also do salt pork, but I do it in the little itty bitty jars. So, because if I'm going to have tons of beans, I want some salt pork or something in there for flavor. Zycon. I love Zycon. Their chicken is amazing. That's where I used to get all my chicken until I started raising them myself. And now that I raise myself, mine are better than Zycon could ever think of, because mine are free range and they're organic. So they're really good for you. I have about 3 minutes more. Is everybody doing okay? Anyone having any issues so far? Any questions that I can answer? Don't make me stand here and look silly. Once the jars are out, you want them to sit for 24 hours. Don't touch them. You also want them to sit on a towel, because your counter, and it mainly depends on your counter. I can put them on my counter and they don't break, but I always put them on a towel anyways, because if they do break, I don't have slime all over my counter. But you want to set them on a towel when they come out. And the reason that is that if you've ever seen a pressure canner food that comes out of it, it's boiling. It's literally boiling. And I just listened to somebody who said that they accidentally dropped some water in their pressure canner when they were taking things out, and everything exploded inside the jars. Well, it's very, very hot. So keep your hands dry and clean when you're working with a pressure canner. Waterbath canning, you don't have to worry about it. It's water. It should be fine. Pressure canner, I was surprised to hear about that, because I've never had that issue. But you want to take your rings off 24 hours later, and then I put my jars in soapy water and I wash them really good, dry them really good, and then I store them like that. The reason you don't store them with the bands on is, if you store them with the bands on, if you happen to be in a high humidity area, or they happen to be outside like mine are, the bands will rust on. And in turn, they will rust this part of the lid. And then when you go to take it off, you're breaking those seals. So you want to start with the lid off. Plus, if you have it with the band off, if it spoils, this lid normally pops up. Now, the way to test your jars is, you want to hold it by the lid. And if you can hold it by the lid, then the seal is good. All right. If the seal comes off and it's within the 24 hours, then you can reprocess those without any issues. Just throw them in the refrigerator, and then if they're jellies, go ahead and put them on the counter like an hour before you're going to put them in the water bath. But if they're canned meat, you can just start with cold water in your pressure canner, stick them in there, and do the process again with new lids. Always use new lids. Don't ever reuse a lid. Yeah, you may get away with it once or twice, but you put too much effort into canning these to use an old lid. You can buy them in bulk, and they're very cheap. Tattler lids. I love my Tattler lids. The reason I don't use them is because I give away a lot of jellies and things. And I accidentally gave away some of my Tattler lids and I never got them back. So I'm saving my Tattler lids for when things aren't so good. Use your jar lifter and you're going to carefully tilt. Here, let's switch. You're going to carefully tilt the jar just a little bit and set it on your towel. Hear the pop? You won't always hear a pop. So don't be upset or worry that yours didn't jar up right because you didn't hear a pop. See, that one was a boom. So they just say they don't guarantee that they're going to pop anymore the way it used to be. And I have found that, and they're still good, even though they haven't popped. But I do love that sound. It's a good sound. You ready to do the hamburger again? I tell you what, that freeze-dried hamburger was amazing. I could not believe it. I want to do cooked hamburgers, but I'm so afraid that the cooked is going to be soggy and just not taste good because you're not cooking it. And when it's raw, you know, the water is what you took out, and so you're just cooking it again. And so the progress, what I'd like to do is I'd like to do the strawberry fruit spread. It is not a jam, it is not a preserve, it's a fruit spread. The only additional tool you're going to need is you're going to either need a blender to blend your strawberries up first or an immersion blender to blend them up while you're bringing them to a boil. Either one of those will work, but that is the only additional tool you will need. It tastes just like that Smucker's, but 100 times better. My daughter loves it. Then what we'll do is we'll do some raw meat for pressure canning. Because I think it's important everybody learn to do raw meat. Those of you that don't have a pressure canner, I think I might hold a contest to give one away before we do the first pressure canning video. But check your Craigslist, check at your Goodwills, talk to your family and friends, because one of them may have a pressure canner that they don't use. Not a pressure cooker. They are two different beasts. It has to have a dial and it has to have a weight of some sort. You've got to be able to hold that pressure at a temperature, not just get to whatever pressure it is. I have pressure cookers. They usually don't have dials on them. So if it doesn't have a dial on it, you can't use it. Ball does have a new pressure canner cooker that you can do extremely small batches in. It will do no good if you don't have electricity. So I might even give away a couple of Presto canners, just the small ones, not an All-American, but maybe we'll do that. We'll give away a couple of Presto canners. So what I'll do at the next live one, the Smucker's one, which will be probably the same day or Wednesday. I might rotate a day so different people can come that couldn't come tonight. So we'll do toward the end of the month, probably a Wednesday night next time. And I'll have somebody in the chat room, Weetree, maybe you'll volunteer for me to see who puts the first and second response up to a question, because with this delay, there's no way for me to even see it. And please, if you enter, please make sure you don't have a pressure canner, because this is trying to get those individuals that are brand new to it to be able to participate, okay? And I'll use my Presto, so it'll be, you know, you'll be able to see exactly what it's like. And don't be afraid. And then we'll do the meat, and then we'll see what else we can do after that. I know a lot of people want to do tomatoes. I want to wait until tomatoes are in season, because if you were to buy tomatoes right now, it would cost you a fortune. All right, so I am all done here, and I'm just waiting to see if anyone has any questions. I so appreciate you showing up tonight. See, that was pretty good. It only took an hour of your time. And hopefully you learned something new that you didn't already know. And I want to thank everybody that's been answering questions in the chat room. I truly appreciate it. And thank you for bearing with me in the beginning because I am just brand new. This is new. And of course, you know, I had to make it extremely difficult. I had to switch screens. Oh, yeah, now you can see me live. But this worked out pretty good. So I think I can duplicate this as we move forward. So, and if there's something that you'd like me to do, again, the best way to get a hold of me is do not give me a private message on YouTube. I don't read those because I can't get them from my phone and my tablet. And I really don't have time to sit down in front of the computer and do those kind of things. I work at computers all day long, and the last thing I want to do is sit at the desk and respond. So if you need to get a hold of me, you can always email me at bearprepper@att.com. You can also go to my webpage, bearprepper.com, and there is a contact form there, and I do get those and read those. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'm Bear Prepper on Twitter and on Facebook, Bear Prepper. So thank you so much for coming, and I hope to see you all on March 5th, and then again toward the end of March. Blessings. Okay, now I gotta figure out how to stop it.